Star Tribune that everybody should read about his amazing work raising money for the North Side and all the activities that they're doing to support youth. And take a read and just kudos to him and all the good things that he's doing. I saw the article, just chat with Jason about it. We're just like, wow, look at all the amazing stuff that's happening. So I just wanted to do a shout out to him and what he's doing.
Thanks, guys. Blue line.
Right, congratulations.
Hey, we're trying. It's right off the blue line. Just saying.
Congrats, Brett. That's amazing.
Thank you. Coming up fast, so we'll keep you guys posted, and hopefully you guys will come and visit us at North Commons.
Definitely.
Of course.
Hey, Catherine, thanks for sending that article on Min Road. Just for your information, that the work that comes out of that Min Road facility, that informs all the materials and specifications and stuff that we'll end up using on a project like this. So actually, that is valuable information, and we do use it. They share it with us.
You're going to use any green concrete. Some of the folks I work with in other states, they're using that as well. It's getting to be in high demand. Is that something you guys might consider?
We could look into it. I get a little iffy on fancy concretes and longevity. Dan knows I worked on a project earlier, years ago, where we put in colored concrete, and the colored concrete didn't end up lasting very long.
I think the green is more toward the environment. More recycled aggregate and stuff that's a little less costly to the environment. But yes, that's where the Min Road comes in, where they put it in and let it go for 30 years or whatever and test it. So, we can wait for the meeting, but I did have a question for you. I'm not sure where 1/4 mile from the station ends as far as a block goes. Do you know what that would be, or is that a Dan thing?
I guess as we say, 1/4 mile from station.
Yes.
It's a loose circle. I mean, it's not a hard line. If it goes through the middle of the house, we don't get rid of it.
But I'm trying to get a visual of where that would be. If I'm on West Broadway, is that 21st, 22nd? I mean,
how far?
Yeah, how far?
It probably takes you up to at least 22nd.
It's probably 3 blocks either way, Catherine.
Yeah.
Okay. 3. Oh, okay, that's great.
Yeah, because if a block is 300 feet, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
More or less.
Quarter miles, 1,200 and some feet, maybe 2 blocks anyway. So maybe a couple of blocks either way.
Yeah.
I mean, give or take on a real rough.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew this was a math question.
Yeah, it's not a hard line. It's something as we look at it. If there's a block that's the line would go up to that block or whatever.
You have to get his protractor out for that one.
That's right. Put it in.
It's old fashioned.
Well, with that, why don't we officially kick off the meeting and get some minutes approved and get into the heart of discussion. If that sounds good to you, Chair. And for everybody, the rest of the committee's benefit, Jason did mention, can only be with us for about 30 minutes. And Felipe is unable to join us tonight. So half your meeting, I'll take on that facilitation again. And we'll make sure to connect with Jason of anything the committee wants brought to the CMC.
Yeah, so with that, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second? I'll second.
Sorry, I was seconding.
Oh, Catherine seconds. So we have we have approved minutes. So with that, we're on to our presentation and agenda for tonight.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Dan Solar to lead us through some of the preliminary station discussion.
Well, thanks everybody, and happy to see folks tonight on a rainy Wednesday. Rainy here anyway, maybe stopping, but good night for a CAC meeting. So we presented similar information on stations and visualizations that you're going to see tonight at the Business Advisory Committee yesterday, and we'll share similar information with the CMC. And then this information on stations and possibilities for LRT is all work that we want to engage with in our open houses and public meetings through the remainder of the month of July. So what are we doing? We're looking for feedback so that we can continue to advance where stations might go, how they're configured, some feedback on the visualizations that we have, side running, center running, different configurations of LRT. And so after these advisory committees, we're going to have, as I say, we're going to be bringing this out into the community at a number of public meetings. May see some of you folks there. Some are virtual, some are in person. We've got some meetings in every city, and we want and expect ongoing discussion for the next several months anyway, as we continue to look at what works, what makes sense, and how we continue to kind of advance slowly and refine these design options. So with regard to stations specifically, you can move this, Nick. With regard to stations specifically, we're going to present tonight some potential station study areas that we have identified through our first cut of where we think we should study the possibility of stations on the various route options. So how did we come up with these locations? Well, previously planned stations where we're close to or on the existing alignment were taken into account. A lot of work had been done around those areas. We had interactive maps and surveys, as you guys are all aware of, that people put a lot of input into about where they thought station locations would go. That fed into a lot of this work. We looked at where key destinations were along the various routes. We looked at where transit connections would be, primarily with arterial BRT, but local bus lines as well. We looked at spacings, not getting stations too close, not getting stations too far apart, finding somewhere in that 1/2 to 1 mile spacing along here. We looked at kind of a balance of the overall number of stations. So the total really hasn't been determined. There's no magic number we can have the same as we had on the last alignment, or we can have less, or we can have more. There's no real magic to it, other than, have we served all of the areas that we need to, and have we kept it a functioning LRT route that maximizes ridership, minimizes travel time, picks up and serves residents and businesses, but at the same time doesn't stop every block. So the first part was very easy in northern Brooklyn Park. Up there, we're proposing that the 4 stations along West Broadway in Brooklyn Park continue and remain part of the project. This is the segment, as you know, that runs from 73rd up to north of Highway 610 along West Broadway. We previously had 4 stations along that segment of West Broadway. These 4 station areas have had a tremendous amount of station area planning done in and around them. They are serving key destinations, they are serving transit connections, and they are actually pretty much fully designed. And so Brooklyn Boulevard would still have a station in and around the commercial area, retail area at Brooklyn Boulevard, as well as the Starlight Transit Center down there. Up at 85th, of course, is North Hennepin Community College, Hennepin County Library, Center for the Arts and School, other Maplewood townhomes, other development proposed and existing in and around that area. At 93rd, more of a station for both. There's not a park and ride at 93rd, so it's more of a station for transit connections, as well as serving the businesses that are in and around that area. Takeda has been a strong proponent of wanting to get employees to their site on LRT. It's a walking distance, between quarter and half mile, as we talk about there, to a lot of jobs in that area as well. And then, of course, the north end of the alignment continues to have Oak Grove Station, which is the connection to the operations and maintenance facility, a fairly significant 800 or 900 stall parking structure there, the redevelopment area around Target North Campus, and then Target North Campus itself. So we propose that all four of those sites really remain the same, and that continue to be the north end of the alignment. As we move into the center section, where after we transition over to Highway 81, and where we're running north-south along Highway 81, we had a station proposed at 63rd on the railroad alignment. We are proposing to continue to provide a station at 63rd in and on Highway 81. And so it would still serve the park and ride there. It would still serve businesses, residents, both in Brooklyn Center, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park, that all kind of center around the 63rd station area. So that one is still being proposed. Again, a lot of with that station and some of these, a lot of the station area planning work about redevelopment opportunities has been done there. Really, the work done for a station on the railroad alignment and the station on the 81 alignment really still pertains in those spots. Down in Crystal, very similarly with station.
Dan, can I ask a question quick on that? So I know it's not like designed yet, but I'm just curious because it went from where it was between the rails and the parking structure. Now it's going to be like on the other side of the rails. Is that something where it's going to go up and over where the NSF is, or how does that work?
Good question, Jason. So as you may or may not remember, it even on the railroad alignment was on the east side of the BNSF tracks. And so we proposed to have a skyway that came out of the second level of the parking deck, went over BNSF and down to the station. And then the south end of the station was served at grade with the traffic signal at 63rd. So on a preliminary basis, we would propose to do the same thing. Okay. If it was in the center of 81, we would serve the south end with the traffic signal. And then we would have a skyway, this time just longer. It would go over BNSF tracks. It would go over southbound 81 and then connect to the station there. What we don't know is, would we carry that design to the other side of 81, or would 81 only, to get to the east side of 81, would you have to go to the south end of the station and go at grade? We haven't really looked at that yet. So there would be a vertical connection, again, very much likely, because we still have to get over the railroad tracks. We can't cross those at grade. And so that would be typically the design there. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So similarly, then down at Crystal, Bass Lake Road, got the retail area in Crystal, residential properties, a lot of bus connections from Brooklyn Center Transit Center over to the Bass Lake Road station. Similarly, in this particular case, the station was also again on the east side of the freight rail tracks, but it was connected with a park and ride on the LRT side of the tracks, just south of the station, and then it was served at Bass Lake Road. So Crystal, of course, has been very adamant about wanting a pedestrian bridge here, but of course we're looking at a number of options that would include maybe potentially not the need for a pedestrian bridge, because we might use a bridge to take 81 through traffic over Bass Lake Road, and then the station would be at grade, the through traffic would go over, and then riders and pedestrians could cross to the station without having to cross through traffic on 81, which is the heaviest and highest speed traffic that's there. These are concepts we're looking at, but again, a station and pedestrian access in some manner with some parking there at Bass Lake Road is one of our study areas. We're certainly recommending that go forward. So then as we start to get to Robbinsdale, that's where we start to divert a little bit from where we were, in terms of the railroad kind of continuing on the west, but 81 going a little further east. So we did have a station in downtown Robbinsdale, on the BNSF alignment. We are proposing that a station area be included in the project in downtown Robbinsdale. It could be around 41st, it could be around 40th. We've got a couple different configurations of how that might work, some split platforms, some center platforms. It would likely be in the street, be served again by traffic signals. It might be able to fit, say, between 40th and 41st and be served by the traffic signals at each end. There's a lot of different configurations there where we might locate parking. If we put some park and ride spaces in Robbinsdale, what is happening with the existing businesses? Where do we have available right away? Who are the main people that we're serving to try to walk up to the station? All that will be taken into consideration, as well as input from the city and from residents and through our public meetings about kind of how we've been at, even last night or at some of our public meetings, we've been bringing out 4 or 5 different station configurations in and around downtown. We know we want downtown. It makes sense to have a station there, just exactly where and how, still to be determined. So then that was it until we had 2 stations in Golden Valley on the other alignment, one at Golden Valley Road and one at Plymouth. So as we know, we're not going that route on the south end of Robbinsdale. You can see kind of a big oblong circle down there. That's really North Memorial. As we've worked with the city, as we've worked with North Memorial Hospital, one of the advantages of now staying on 81 is we would be able to put a station there. So again, why we think a station at North Memorial should be in the mix. Is it right in front of the hospital? Is it is it out in the center of the road? Is it north of Abbott? Is it south and more by the West Broadway bridges? Number of different configurations we'll look at. Who's accessing it? How do we? I mean, the hospital has been pretty clear. They've said if we have a station here, it would be ideal for us and for employees if folks could kind of simply get from the station and not have to walk, a half a mile to get to the hospital. That may discourage the use of LRT by employees. At the same time, we're not proposing to put LRT down Oakdale, for example, and put a station right in the middle of the hospital complex. So kind of where is the best fit? How do we serve those folks? And then how do we serve people that aren't going to the hospital? Residential residents in Robbinsdale and North Minneapolis on that side. How do we get them to the station? That's all part of kind of how the station will come together there. So that, go ahead.
Sorry, just a question. That's all torn up right now as we speak with the bridge there. Can you speak a little bit around what's being planned for that and whether the folks that are tearing up the bridge there and everything else have this as part of their discussion, or?
Yes, I can. So the folks that are tearing up the bridge and the folks that are proposing the LRT project are the same people. That's us. That's Hennepin County. Hennepin County is doing that project. The bridges were going about their own path. They were getting designed. Those bridges are in terrible shape. In fact, one of them had to be closed right before because it just the structural capacity was dwindling, and from a safety standpoint. So that project had federal funds. That project was designed. That project was well on its way. And then LRT takes a pivot. So we had to take a look at it and say, should we postpone this project and try to do something different? And we made a very conscientious decision to say no. We've got to do the West Broadway project. The funding is lined up. The project is ready to go to bids. The bridges are in bad shape. One of them's already closed. So we moved forward. What we're doing now, though, is looking at, are there things we can do, minor things, not move. It was a very intricate dance, as I understand, to keep one of the bridges open, tear one down, build one new one. There's still going to be 2 bridges in the end. Put the traffic on that and build a new one and put all those piers in places where existing and new could all coexist. Because it's all parkway down there, and it's this whole spaghetti bowl of Lowry. And so we're looking at, are there things that can be done in that construction that might facilitate what we do, or how will we come up either from Lowry or West Broadway and come around or over those bridges to make it work. So we're working together with ourselves, Met Council's and Hennepin County's team on this project, and Hennepin County's bridge team on the other. In fact, I just had a conversation with our public works director today at Hennepin County about Lisa Cerny had a tour out there, and she said, you know, we looked at this and we're going to get together and say, are there some things, maybe we can do some soil corrections down there while we're digging, as long as we're out there to get things ready for what happened. So yeah, we're trying to coordinate those pieces.
So it sounds like, you know, everyone that should be talking to each other is, but what I think I'm hearing is things might need to be opened up again, depending upon the final design, right?
Well, we're not going to redo, we're going to work around the new bridges. We're not going to tear them up again, but to the extent that we can do some work there while we're digging now to get ready for what could happen later, we're going to try to do it. We're going to try to add it. Unfortunately, had we known this, we would have kind of incorporated, like built a single structure in there that would have been, if you will, LRT ready in case we would have came. We missed that opportunity. We got to do the best we can around it. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it makes sense when you've got the funds too. You have to do it right.
Well, and the definite need of the time. I mean, they have been waiting to get done, and so they just needed to go.
Okay, thank you.
So as we leave that area, you can see we've identified some station study areas both on the West Broadway and the Lowry route, and there's some commonalities, and then there's some differences between what we're proposing. So these are what we've identified through both public engagement and our first cut. And certainly part of what we're going to want to do is understand from folks, what are we missing and what do we have right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So bus connections are, of course, important. Penn is fairly significant north-south route through here. So would we go down Lowry or would we go down West Broadway, whichever one of those routes we may use? A station at Penn, in and around Penn, is one we want to have studied, as one we want to have considered. It connects directly to the sea line. There's both current development and redevelopment opportunities at Lowry and Penn and West Broadway and Penn. That's a fairly critical location. So that's number one. Similarly, what I call the Emerson, Fremont, Lyndale section of both Lowry and West Broadway. The D line will run north-south on Emerson, Fremont. Lowry or Lyndale continues to carry traffic. There's development, it's very much commercial and retail developed between Emerson, Fremont, and Lyndale on West Broadway. There's a mix of development, both existing and potential, on Lowry. So again, how much right-of-way is available? What's the station configuration? Split platforms or center platforms? Where do we end up? I'm going to say if a station, for example, on West Broadway makes sense on the southeast side of Penn, then we may not want to put a station on the northwest side of Emerson to where they get together. So part of it is, where do they make sense on each corner? Who are we trying to serve? Where are the best pedestrian routes? Those kind of things. So, but those four corners, the Emerson, Fremont, Lyndale, and Penn corners on both of those two routes, are very likely station areas, and we think certainly potential station study areas. From there, it starts to divert a little bit. So we did identify a potential station study area on the Lowry route at the Lowry-Washington Avenue connection, where unknown, but certainly the advent of the potential development at Upper Harbor Terminal and what might happen up there does certainly make some sense for that to be a study area for where a station could go if we go down the orange route somewhere in and around that area. Similarly, on the Washington Avenue route, if we were to come up Washington Avenue out of downtown and then continue north to Lowry, or come up to Washington Avenue and make the turn at West Broadway on the red alignment you see there, a station in and around West Broadway and Washington makes sense if we were to go that way. Where exactly it would go, how it would be configured, we'd have to look at what was the potential for ridership there, transit connections, and so on. But that's a study area we're recommending. Also on the orange, or I guess what could be, the orange out of downtown and then either West Broadway or Washington, is if we do end up coming and heading into North Loop area, then a station in and around 10th and Washington or somewhere in North Loop is worth studying. Does that make sense? So if we had a Washington alignment that came from Target Field Station, headed up 10th, and then headed all the way up Washington to Lowry, that could be a station there. Or even if we took the West Broadway route, went over Plymouth or went up and then took the red, that could also be a station route there. So that we're recommending some study around the station there. And then the last spot that we have identified right now is if we should take kind of the purple with a bridge out of downtown, or maybe 7th Street and the ramps somehow up to Lyndale and Plymouth, a station in and around the Lyndale-Plymouth intersection, serving both residential and retail commercial properties, the county service center, and other spots in and around there. That's a very tight intersection right there already. So how a station goes in, where it goes, is going to be a lot of determined on which of all those dotted lines guide LRT in there. But certainly it's worth studying. Can we fit a station in there, and should we do it? So it's a real quick overview of what we have identified. We've gotten some comments already. I mean, this was presented to the community cohort today. There were some comments there. We had some comments at the TPAC meeting. So when we evaluate these areas for stations, we're going to want to look at what are we getting in terms of public feedback? What do we have for available right away out there? Do we have to buy a lot of buildings? Do we have to purchase any property? What's the existing and then the future land use? What's there today? And what is the potential for land use changes in the future? What kind of connections and destinations is it serving? When I talk about engineering requirements, we talk about, thanks, Jason. We talk about, is it a split platform or a center platform? What kind of room do we have? And then also, looking at the project principles and the goals for the project, which are about keeping it in the new starts process, making sure that we have good ridership. Are we actually picking up adequate riders at these various spots? So that's about a little bit about how they'll be evaluated. So for discussion, both from folks tonight, if they've got any, as well as ongoing, these are the things we're looking for info on. Are we missing any key destinations on these routes? Does it seem like it's in the right spot? Are we serving what's there today? And then are we providing stations that allow for what might happen in the future? Are some of these more important than others? What do we need to know? What community assets are most critical that we need to both serve potentially with a station and then avoid significant impacts to because of a station? So that's a little bit of the discussion that we'll want to have at our public meetings over the next month to get feedback on these. So that's a real high level presentation on where we're going. This is a very key part. I mean, it's also one of the funner parts, right? Because working on an LRT project is about where are we going to be able to stop and where are we going to be able to serve customers, and it starts to look like it's coming together when we do this. So happy to take any questions, any comments, any feedback from anybody.
Kathy has her hand up to begin with. Dan, Kathy Frazier.
Hi, Kathy. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. I have a few questions here. The first one, I thought you mentioned that we are no longer going to have a park and ride on 93rd. Is that correct, in Brooklyn Park?
Kathy, we never had a park and ride proposed at 93rd in the past. We did not. Up there is where, so there was when I first started on this project, that corner was kind of undeveloped. The warehouse buildings went in on the northeast quadrant. The church got built on the southeast quadrant. And so because we have the parking structure up at Oak Grove Station, we had not proposed and are currently still not proposing any park and ride spaces at the 93rd station.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And then have you looked at any transit connectivity east-west of Brooklyn Park?
That's a great question, Kathy. We know what's there today. There are bus routes that run on 85th. There are bus routes that run on Brooklyn Boulevard. But that doesn't mean that that will be the only transit connectivity for the future. As we get closer down the line of implementing the project, we'll look at a small area plan for transit service in this area and then start to say, are there other transit connections east-west? Should we be shifting and changing some of the current east-west bus routes? It's a huge question that we get in Brooklyn Park all the time, which is you got a great north-south LRT line running here, but I live in East Brooklyn Park. How the heck am I supposed to get there without having a car? Well, one of those is to improve east-west transit connections on major routes where people can get to them and then get to the LRT so they can use it. So,
okay.
Dan, can I ask a question?
Yes, Catherine.
Sure. I've been looking around for a transit study. Is there a transit
station? There's no station on 7.
I'm sorry.
I think Kathy was asking a second question, but we lost her.
Okay,
the
sorry.
internet started buffing and we lost part of it.
Yes, you froze for a touch, Kathy, and then came back. So go ahead and start again.
Yeah, so currently it looks like there's no station on 73rd. So Brooklyn Boulevard will serve the 73rd Avenue businesses and people that live over there. And the distance from 73rd to Brooklyn Boulevard appears to be a little over a mile. So I'm just wondering what was considered there in terms of reaching some of those communities and businesses that are on the 73rd area.
Now you're challenging me to think about the past. I mean, I know we had always proposed a Brooklyn Boulevard station because of its connection to the retail there and the Starlight Transit Center and other spots. And then, of course, the next station is south at 63rd. So I don't know if we'd considered a station interim in the middle. I just don't necessarily remember that. It also seems like 73rd to Brooklyn Boulevard is not a mile, but I could very well be wrong.
Well, it depends on where in Brooklyn Boulevard
that's true.
that is.
That's true.
If it's
I mean, we do know that it was, Kathy, intended that the Brooklyn Boulevard station would serve that kind of entire residential area between West Broadway, Zane, Brooklyn Boulevard, and the South. And then, yes, in some cases, it is a little farther walk than maybe. The other problem is
something to think about in the future.
So the other problem we have in that area.
Thanks for.
I know Kathy's bouncing in and out, but I want to remind folks that we also go up in the air there. So right where we make that turn, we go up in the air to get over 81 and come down right by 81. So that makes it a little bit of a challenge for a stationary as well. Are we ready to go to Catherine?
It's just a quick one, Dan. I've been looking for a traffic study other than ridership. Is there a traffic study for the amount of traffic on both West Broadway and Lowry when we're talking automobile and the potential impact of returning from Washington?
Okay, so yes, we've pulled together a traffic study that looks at volumes along West Broadway and Lowry, and what the conditions are today, what the conditions would be if we built LRT. Right, Nick? This is all
Yes.
true, correct?
Yeah, that's true. We've pulled the existing studies, yes.
Tell me, what was the last part, Catherine? Was it about the turn? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you're looking at a turn either from if we're using Washington, from Washington to West Broadway, or Washington to Lowry. So is there a study from other projects that talk about that interaction between a turning train and traffic?
So in both of those scenarios, Catherine, we could never make the turn from Washington to Lowry or Washington to West Broadway in the intersection with traffic.
Mhm.
We'd have to go on a much different curve than through there. So we'd almost like leave the intersection alone and then connect on either side.
Okay.
If that makes sense. It would look more like the red than it would look like the tight 90-degree curve you see at Washington and Lowry.
Right. I'm
But
not sure. That's similar to what would have happened at Van Wyck.
sure. So what we haven't done though, but Catherine, we haven't laid out where that would take place, how it would affect traffic, where we would make that movement. I mean, that would all be much more fine-tuned engine design work. Yeah.
Thanks.
With Adam waiting to ask a question.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan, for everything. Question I have is looking at the route. There's two main grocery stores that I see on the route in North Minneapolis and Robbinsdale, and they're both a tad far away from the proposed stops. Has there been any consideration about moving one of them a little closer to either the Cub on Lindale or the Hy-Vee up by North Memorial?
Good question. So certainly with Robbinsdale, let's start with Robbinsdale. I mean, part of it has been, do we go a little further north with the North Memorial Station, so we would serve the hospital to the south and Hy-Vee and North Memorial's ambulatory clinics, or would we stay closer to the hospital? That's a consideration. That's a discussion. That's a balancing point there to get closer there. The Hy-Vee, so that's the Hy-Vee one. In Minneapolis, that's why we see that longer stretch, right? Because I kind of consider, how are we serving everything with that station from the Cub at Lindale all the way to what's the best connection for D-line riders north and south on Emerson. And so you've got that number of blocks in there. So are we shifting a little bit this way, a little bit this way? Where does the station end up on Penn? Where is there available right away to do the widening? Where would it, I mean, we also got a comment. Brent talked a little bit about his work. Well, we also got a comment from the park board that they're putting a lot of improvements into North Commons Park. And so, you know, should we be leaning more towards Emerson with that station? So we're a little closer to North Commons Park. But that's all part of, we can't serve everything. So where do we use signing, pedestrian facilities, and where do we put the stations to get the maximum benefit out of it? The grocery stores are great examples, Adam, of key destinations. I mean, I certainly have seen so many people on University Avenue from the Walmart, from the Cub that's there on University Avenue using the train, east and west. So grocery shopping is a big piece of it. Those are both key destinations in those cities.
I know you said there's no number in mind and you want to keep that quarter-mile distance, but when we get down into metropolitan neighborhoods, is it ridiculous to go less than a quarter of a mile, or is it affected so much so that it's not feasible?
Less than a quarter mile's too close, Adam. Just too close for an LRT line. Remember, we were going to be on half-mile spacing on University Avenue, and we brought it back to quarter-mile spacing, or was it 1 mile and we got it back? We were on 1 mile spacing on University Avenue, and then we brought it to half-mile spacing by adding Western, Victoria, and Hamlin, and that feels right. I mean, yes, that means if you're dead set between them, you're a quarter mile away from a station in either direction. But that's where we say we can't have 1 mile spacing one station in North Minneapolis. Makes no sense. We can't be every quarter mile or less either. That's just too many, and that's why there still probably needs to be, some local bus service and other transit considerations besides just LRT.
All right, thank you.
I think we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just I'm sorry, that was me, and I'm looking for my hand raising and everything. It's just not working for me.
Okay, this one works too, so that's good.
I'm just gonna blurt it out on this one. Just refresher memory. What is our proposed runtime from Target in the north or that area all the way down to Target Field? What are we projecting right now?
I don't know what we're projecting per se as much as what we were at. We were at 31 minutes, right? Sophia?
Yes, we're on 31.
We were at 31 minutes from Target Field, Target North Campus, Oak Grove Parkway Station to Target Field. On the previous alignment, we were at 31 minutes. So I guess I would say at a 31 minute runtime with the stations that we had on the previous alignment, we were projecting ridership of 23,000, 24,000 a day.
About 26. About 26,500, 27.
So 27,000 riders a day. So I think inevitably, Brett, the run time's going to be a little longer.
Okay.
Than it was before, because we're just in so much street running now that it's just simply going to be. But we also are probably adding some stations and replacing some stations that I would guess are going to have higher ridership than some of the stations on the previous alignment. And so hopefully we find a balance in there, and maybe we're in a mid 30s, upper 30s run time, but we're still getting 28,000 riders a day. That would be great. We don't know that yet, but that's where we'd like to shoot for.
Yeah, got it. And then follow-up question on that is the frequency on the trains themselves every 10 minutes per. I mean, are we looking at from that as well?
That's what the current Blue Line is, and we would propose right now to stay on the current Blue Line schedule of 10-minute headways for most of the day.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
I got my hand up.
Yes, Catherine.
I know there's been some discussion about looking for potential parking facility, either along West Broadway or Lowry. Will that selection have an impact on the station locations, or have you found potential areas where you might either build or utilize as a parking structure for the businesses along either one of those corridors?
We have not. That doesn't mean we haven't looked and said, oh, interesting. That one segment of the Cub parking lot near Lindale, as I've looked at an aerial photo, never has any cars in it, right? There are some possibilities, but I think as it relates to station placement, Catherine, that hasn't been as big a concern, because I want to be very clear here. We're not talking about building park and ride. Any parking we build is for the use of businesses along the corridor because of the reduction in on-street parking availability. We do not want people to come as far as North Minneapolis and then park in a park and ride in North Minneapolis that is intended for businesses to take the train to the airport. That's not the purpose of it. And so we need to be diligent to get the parking where it's needed for the businesses and the stations where it's needed for the riders, and that's different than when I talked about Robbinsdale, right? Where I'm saying, as we look at where we might put a station, where we might put park and ride spaces is different. Now there, we're trying to provide some park and ride spaces because we don't want people to park on street in business parking and park and ride, and that kind of vice versa in North. We want to provide parking for businesses, and people are walking up
And
or
biking
busing too.
and use the train. I'm totally with you on
Yeah.
that. I'm not married to this cars everywhere scenario.
Yeah, so that's the intention. Now, so we've looked at some spots, but of course we need to work with the community about where does it make sense to kind of put some parking and how will it best serve business. Just because we have available space way up north on West Broadway does no good for the businesses down by Emerson. Can't be a mile away. So it's got to be close to where it's needed.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
So
Maybe
Sophia, I'll
I'll-
turn it over to Nick and we can talk about the visualizations. A lot of exciting stuff to see there as well.
Yeah, so thanks everybody. Good evening. Just as we roll these out, I think some of you may have seen a few of these visualizations, and what we're going to show here is just some representative ones, visualizations at key spots along the corridor. It's just to get an idea, the context as we're going through, starting up at Brooklyn Park and down through Crystal, Robbinsdale, and into Minneapolis. So these visualizations are to start that conversation. You know, a lot of folks are saying, well, how does this fit within there and how does it work? So we're rolling these out here. You'll notice there's not a lot of dimensions on them right now. We know we have a certain amount of space, but as we're going out to the public and getting some feedback and working with the city and the county on these, you know, we'll start, you know, kind of what I'd say, appropriating the space that's out there for roadway, for sidewalk areas and whatnot. So and also what you'll notice on a lot of these visualizations, you know, we're not showing a lot of landscaping and everything at this time. It's really to let everybody see, you know, or get an idea of what the context, what the massing is within the available right of way that we're working with. We do need, we'll have a lot of work to do with when we get to, we're not showing intersections at this time. We've got to work with our project partners, the city, the county, on how intersections are going to operate, you know, how we get left turns in, you know, where we put bus stations in these areas. And so this is a lot of work we got to do, but this is the initial rollout. So folks can get in their head, you know, how this actually works. So I'm going to start out on the north side here. I apologize for that. So Brooklyn Park, and this is the easy one as it was in the last portion of the presentation. We were at 90% there. We are at 90% in Brooklyn Park out of 4 out of the 5 stations. So the 4 stations on West Broadway were in design there. The 5th one at 63rd we'll need to work on, as we've explained, on how things work. But we're going to analyze that area, and then we want to continue to engage with the rest of the corridor as we develop it. But we want to continue to engage with the community in Brooklyn Park, because it's been a good year and a half, 2 years since our last meetings with folks in Brooklyn Park to explain where we're at with the project. So it might not be fresh with them, or they may have forgotten where we're at, or just maybe haven't known about it and they're just newly engaging in it. So the exhibit I have here is coming from our 90% plans for the 85th Avenue Station area plan. And so as we get farther in development, in design, we start knowing how the station platform is going to fit here. In this case, we're center running down West Broadway. We start knowing how we incorporate the pedestrians and bike facilities on either side. We start looking at the road design and how we can refine intersection design and how we can focus on safety and pedestrian crossings on these areas, and how we connect to the areas around. So in this example here, we have that center station in here. As we look at it, we have access to that center station. This is fairly typical for a center station at an intersection. We use that intersection as access to one side, and then on the other side, we'll always have 2 means of access to a station. So on this back side here, you'll see we have a pedestrian access that goes to and through the station across the road here. And we'll talk a little bit more about this crossing, but you can see as we get through the crossing, we'll have signals that pedestrians can push a button, activate the flashing stop signs for cars. Cars can stop that are coming through, let the pedestrians across. And then we start looking at amenities here, or just design in these areas that as the pedestrian comes into this box, it kind of
forces them to turn and start looking at the direction that a train would be coming. So we're getting that more positive direction to pedestrians, so they're looking in the right places for trains, and they're not getting surprised or missing that. And then they're able to get to the station platform. And similarly, when they want to go back across, you can push a button on this side, and if you wanted to continue straight across, or as you're getting off the station. Again, we're looking at connections. This is North Hennepin Community College in this area. We're working with North Hennepin on how we connect to their campus, though we get riders to and from that campus safely. We've done a lot of work here on the intersections, the intersection design with some placemaking there with the city, and some of the improvements the city is going to do along with the project. So we have really good renderings in this location of how the center stations would work. In the previous design, all our station platforms had the same footprint. They were all center running stations, so they all had the same footprint, which is convenient for our riders and folks visiting it, so they know when they get on the station that there's going to be the card readers as they get on, so they can either tap their go-to cards, or there'll be ticket vending machines right there up front, so they can buy their tickets, and they're all in the same spots, as well as the signage letting folks know which track they're coming to. And then we'll have the video signings up there to announce when station or train times, when trains are coming in, and which direction they need, or which side of the platform they need to be for that train, that depending on the direction it's going. Also showing, as we worked with this project on West Broadway, we did narrow down the traffic lanes so we could get everything to work within that right of way there, and that helped to provide a safer pedestrian experience by narrowing down that conflict area with the vehicles, and less time a pedestrian would have to be out there in that location. Same one, this is kind of just looking at a different angle. This is at that south end where this is the pedestrian only crossing, that south of 85th going into North Hennepin Community College, and that's how it works with pedestrian push buttons, where they can bring up this sign and have flashers to let the vehicles know that the cars are coming. And this is a good view of what the station platform will look like, with the shelter, little shelter areas in here, heaters, lighting, cameras that we have in place, the signage that we have for folks, and the informational signs on train schedules and whatnot. So that was Brooklyn Park. Again, it's just a kind of a recap of work that we've done, and the 90% plans we're at. So as we go down into Crystal, I guess, are there any questions on Brooklyn Park before I go forward? Okay, with that, I'll just jump down into Crystal here. So as we go into the Crystal design considerations, we need to confirm that center running at grade on County Road 81 works, and working with our project partners and the community on that, and how it lays out and where the stations go in. Also, in this area, County Road 81 is a 6-lane design with the center running light rail going down it. We know that we'll have to take a lane from there, so it'll become a 4-lane road design. So we're evaluating, looking at traffic studies, looking at traffic and capacity analysis, and looking at how the intersections will operate through there, and that they still function at acceptable levels. And as we looked at with Bass Lake Road, we'll look at that design and development and how a station fits in there. Moving it out from where it was in the train corridor, in the rail corridor, out into 81 in this location. I should also step back and say, we're for each community, we're putting together quite a few of the visualizations you're going to see here on representative areas along the corridor. I'm just showing you a few of them in each community right now, just for interest of time, because each community will have a pretty good library of them, and representative spots along the alignment and routes. So this is a example of some of the renderings that we're putting together for visualizations on this. We'll have these out as either a presentation like this virtually, or if we're at public meetings, we bring these out on poster boards, so folks can go up there and take a good close look at how things lay out, and see where they're at. But these are based on what you see in this right-hand side is a photograph or a photo of that view of where we're taking that look and picture. And then we're kind of bringing up with the bird's eye view looking down so we can get a good view of everything. I also have a key map on all of these on the general location of where these visualizations, where these concept drawings are from. So this is County Road 81. We're just south of Bass Lake. So Bass Lake is off here kind of on the horizon, Bass Lake Road. And County Road 81, existing condition here, 6-lane roadway, pretty good sized median here in the middle of the road with boulevards on either side. We have have trails in here on both sides. And in this case, there's a frontage road that's on the west side of 81 with businesses on both sides. And now as I flip down, this is how the center riding light rail fits within that corridor. So this gives folks a better visualization. Okay, that's how it fits. So in this location, we're showing concrete for that guideway, but as we have left turns, there's a good amount of pavement out here to account for what would be left turns going up at the intersections. How we program that area outside of what we need for the guideway is still to be determined. We'll look at that as we get farther in design, but this is really for massing again. What you can see, and I'm going to flip back and forth here, is that with this design, by running down the center using the 2 lanes, one on each side, that we're able to stick within or maintain that existing outside curb line. So we're staying within the footprint of County Road 81. So I'm just going to flip back and forth here just so you can see how that curb line stays in place, and doesn't really impact in this view some of the properties on the outside staying within the right of way. I'm going to jump down here a little bit farther south down County Road 81 in Crystal. This is at 48th Avenue. Again, 6-lane roadway through here, center median in this location. This is a little bit more residential, or this is more residential in character with residential on both sides of the area. Of this area, there's a frontage road here on the east side. And as I go down, this is how the center running would fit in that corridor with 2 lanes in each direction, and maintaining those frontage roads and maintaining pedestrian access ways, pedestrian trails and bike trails on both sides. Any questions on Crystal as we go through? Okay. So next we're going down to Robbinsdale and some of the same considerations. We're going to confirm center running at grade on County Road 81 in Robbinsdale. In Robbinsdale, there's quite a few intersections, since we're going to be in the downtown area that we're looking to maintain, and we believe we can maintain those intersections and the full movements on those intersections. We want to really focus on pedestrian safety, the crossings, and the pedestrian environment as we're getting feedback from our advisory committees and from the community. That's one of the key focuses here is we really need to focus on pedestrian safety in downtown, that with the highway there, and then you're going to put a train there. We want to make sure that it's safe and accessible and doesn't divide the community. And what we're going to work on as we put this together is develop those opportunities to develop those safe crossings and do the best we can to help kind of pull things together and have it not be a divider. So again, to be developed as we're moving through these will be the details, such as there's landscaping out there right now. How do we replace that landscaping? How do we work with the streetscaping as we get going forward? Those will be stuff that we'll really dive into as we get into design. But again, this is for the massing. Botno Boulevard. So this is County Road 81. We're looking north. We're just above 40th Avenue. So 41st is up here in the distance. This is town center up here. So you'll see that we have a pretty good sized retaining wall existing today with parking above it. And there's actually underground parking behind this wall in locations. We have a sidewalk or trails on both sides, a median in here. We have turn lanes that are left turning onto 41st, and also the right turns into the Robbins Center Shopping Center, both the lower and upper centers. So this is what it looks like today. And you can see with the center running here that it does expand out. Now, interesting enough in this area that right of way is actually quite wide. So go back to the existing, the actual road right of way there, or the public right of way, goes up almost to the striping on these parking stalls in this location. So as we're looking at it, we're able to maintain pedestrian access out here, and we'll continue to work on how we provide the best environment we can there on both sides. This is probably a little bit easier to see how, we've got some extra pavement out here with these turn lane shadows, as we call them, and those are opportunities that we can take a look at the design as we get farther into it. Is that a place that we can do hardscaping with different pavers or different kinds of finishes, or if the city is interested in maintaining, is this where landscaping goes into these locations. We do know that with the grades and depending on where stations go, would likely have to reconstruct the wall that's along here, but it stays within its existing place. We maintain the 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. We maintain the turning movements through here. We do move a little farther towards these businesses. We stay within the right of way with the improvements, but some of the parking is lost in here, and we'll work with these property owners on mitigation for those losses of parking and how to either incorporate something or work with them what the best solution is. I'm going to move down a little bit farther here in Robbinsdale. This is getting near North Memorial, so we're kind of up North Memorial. 35th would be down here in front of us in this area. So we have a frontage road on either side of the road. We have pedestrian walkways, trails on either side of this road. We have a pretty good size center median here with 2 lanes of traffic in each direction, and a pretty good sized boulevard that separates the frontage roads from the through lanes. And as we flip forward here again, we stay pretty close to those existing curb lines in here, using up that center median, maybe taking a little bit of the boulevards on either side, but we're able to maintain in this location the frontage roads on both sides here, able to maintain pedestrian ways through this area. So that's Robbinsdale in this area. Any questions here, concerns, comments? All right, so let's jump down into Minneapolis, and this did this to me before. Sophia, you might need to take over here because it's stalled out on me, it looks like. I'm going to stop sharing.
Hey, Nick, I will see what slide you were on. Slide Robbinsdale, slide
33. Apologize for it. For some reason, it seems to time out on me when we get to slide 33.
Solid plan, Nick.
It's a good time for discussion on these visualizations, I guess. Are folks seeing these as helpful? Can you see how things lay out? I know there's been a lot of concerns of folks saying, I just don't see how it can fit. And so hopefully this helps to visualize that a little bit better.
Well, Nick, while we're waiting, can I ask you some kind of generic questions?
Sure.
In the past, we've had discussions about silent trains and some of the issues that were on University. So you mentioned that you were going to take special safety precautions in Robbinsdale because the folks would be so close to the train. The train has no whistle. Is that still correct?
Well, I guess typically when we're running in that condition, we wouldn't be using a whistle. As they come into a station, they'll use a bell coming into the station, so to let folks know on the platform it's coming in and warn them, because it is quiet. we'll do, like I said, we'll take a look at, how we can best get pedestrians to and by the station and get them squared up with the train so they're looking that direction and hopefully not just looking down at a phone or something like that.
Well, they're going to be looking at the phone, but as I mentioned
Yeah.
before, by the time we get the whistle, I can already see the train. I need to hear the whistle or that it's coming before it gets there.
Yeah.
And uh, also, the when we had Osa Memorial in the plan, we had a lot of cultural input along the rail. Communities inputted their design and requests and things that better identify the neighborhood through which the train was flowing.
Yeah.
Is that going to be part? Are we using any of that artwork and those renderings, or
Yeah.
how's that going to work?
Yeah, so again, let's get back to pedestrian safety again, so we'll make it so we're encouraging as best we can to keep people crossing at the appropriate location. So we'll want to make sure that we're along the whole corridor, we're taking into account pedestrian crossings, at intersections where it's signalized, but also we need to provide appropriate crossings so people aren't trying to jump chains and bollards and fences and running across the track. They're crossing at the appropriate place. And when you get there, we don't have the whistles, but we do have little bells or warning signs for the pedestrians. They come out with signs that say train coming, second train coming, look, and flashers there. So
It just flashes on University. It doesn't say train coming. So when I look at it, I say, oh yeah, this is a train station. It doesn't say to me a train is coming. It just says that this is a train station. But we could work through that later.
yeah.
A
So
question about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the architecture and placemaking and stuff, that's kind of, as we showed the stations at 85th there, Catherine, we'll look at they're a standard footprint, but there's opportunities for some of the architecture changes, the facade on the roof of the building, the colors of the station that we can tune to fit within that community, and we'll work with the community on those design issues. Every one of these stations, we came up with quite a few different concepts, to vote which is the best one that we like. So we'll continue doing what we did, similar to what we did on Olson Memorial when we
Okay,
worked there.
just two follow-up. This one's quick. On West Broadway, westbound at West Broadway and Emerson, there's no arrow for turning. Is that Public Works, or will that be those kind of traffic flow issues that currently exist? Will that be part of this project, or will it be Public Works from the city?
Well, no, actually, as we're, depending on the route that we're going to go down to, that road section will be reconstructed. So with that, we'll be working with the city, the county on how those intersections operate, what movements that need to be there, which intersections are signalized, which aren't, where the turning movements are, and how those are laid out. And then again, we'll also have to look at, if it's not a signalized intersection, then how do we account for pedestrian movements coming through there? We can't just tell pedestrians, go walk, 3-4 blocks the other direction. We need to provide safe and adequate crossings.
All right, thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Get back to your slide that you were avoiding.
Oh, I'm not avoiding it.
I know.
That's why Sophia had it ready to go. What was the next slide, Sophia? Is this our next one? No, the up. Keep going. Okay, no, down one. Oh, sorry. Down to the Minneapolis discussion there. Yep, right there. Too far, right there. Can we stop? Thanks.
It's lagging, but it's showing.
Yeah, we've also got resize the video. Okay, got it. Okay, so in Minneapolis, what are our things that we need to look at? Well, we have the at least the 2 road options that we've rolled out. So the Lowry Washington options are what we need to evaluate, and West Broadway options, and then also as we get into links, how those come in there. So want to take a look at some of these concepts that are respective along those 2 routes, and how things will fit in here. With that, again, we'll need to spend a lot of the time on, as we look at these, there's in this case, as we're looking at it, there's pedestrian and bikeways out here. Lowry has a bikeway along it. As we roll through, we're going to have to figure out how do we accommodate for those bikes and that bike route. Can we keep it in the road? Do we need to mitigate it and maybe move it a block off or something like that? We understand that we need to take care of that. Landscaping, hardscaping is another thing that'll come down the road here as we're looking at it, and we determine how these lay out. So with that, yes. So let's go right back to that last one, or do we jump too far? Okay, so Lowry Avenue. This is pretty typical of Lowry Avenue, where it's pretty residential along there. There's commercial mixed into it. It has a narrow right of way, 75 to 80 feet through there. There's a sidewalk on either side. As you see here in that concrete on the outside, there are bike lanes out there, and then a lane of traffic in each direction. And also we show that in locations there's bump outs for parking along there. So there is parking on Lowry also. Next slide there. So this would be center running, and you can see that this really widens out that footprint more of the roadway and the sidewalks in this location. It pushes it out closer to the properties there. We'd still stay within right of way as much as humanly possible. So this photo shows the center running guideway. And our guideway we've said before is a 28 foot minimum guideway. 28 to 30 foot is where we need to be, depending on if we need signs or signals or something in there. But that guideway is very not a lot of room to move there. So what we have left with room on the outside is what we need to allocate for traffic and pedestrians and bikes in that location, and then the other amenities that would go into boulevards. So this location shows a little bit different color as we get out to the sidewalks. We have sidewalk on either side. We have a colored band that for a boulevard that can be used for different amenities, whether if it's wider and it can be planted, or if it's narrower, or do we use it similar to what we did on University for stormwater runoff and treatment, and would trees fit in this location? So those are all things that we'll need to look at as we get into design. What you'll notice on this photo is we have 1 lane of traffic in each direction, similar to what it was. We do mark it here because there was a bike lane before. We have those bike sharrows, as they're called, that share the lane sharrows in here. We need to determine, as we go forward, if this is how we maintain, how do we mitigate for bikes along here? Do we maintain bikes on here? How much room do we need for it? What is the condition that we feel is the best to accommodate that?
A question from Adam in the chat about the bike lanes.
Exactly. Again, thanks, Adam. Yes, the kind of going way is to try to separate the bikes from the traffic to make it as safe as possible. Again, on this one, that it wasn't a separated bikeway on Lowry right now. Sharrows are not optimal, but again, there's a lot of work that we need to do to determine how we allocate and program that space that's outside the guideway on either side.
I would go as far as saying it's not even worth putting the paint down on the road if that's the plan for Sharrows. No one in their right mind is going to ride their bike down that lane that way, and that's just the way it is. But I can tell you, no one would ever ride down that street that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if Adam and others agree. Not even worth the paint.
That would be so congested, you would have so many issues. That's asking for trouble.
I can't say I disagree with you. I appreciate the comment, and like I said, there's a lot of work we need to do on that. but that's good feedback. All right, let's jump to the next slide, please, Sophia. So this is a view or concept of Washington Avenue, about halfway down Washington Avenue by 18th. The existing view, so it's 4 lanes of traffic in each direction. We have turn lanes in there. There's parking on both sides of the road in this condition. Underneath that key map is where 94 is. You can kind of see little parts of it down there, and the grade or the slope down into the I-94 corridor. Trails on either side here, or sidewalk at least on either side of this. So next view. So this would be a center running LRT down Washington. So we're able to maintain a lane of traffic in each direction. We're showing a left turn lane here that would be a left turn. We can continue with the pedestrian way, maybe a little bit more enhanced on pedestrians, and we're showing the possibility of getting a parking lane on that outside or that southbound lane. So next one here is a moving over to West Broadway. So I don't know if there's any questions on Washington, but West Broadway, this is by Queen Avenue, the existing shot. So this is I guess a 5-lane section. So 2 through lanes each direction with that center of turn lane down there. This is kind of a little bit more residential with single family on that southwest side, and then the northeast side, apartment building or a little higher density residential in this location. So sidewalks on both sides here in this location. So can we go to with the light rail? So this is where you can see it gets pretty significant. We go from a 5-lane section to 1 lane of traffic in each direction, able to maintain pedestrian ways throughout here, and fit within this corridor. Next slide. This is going to West Broadway and Emerson. So as you can see here, this photo is kind of taken right at the intersection of Emerson, looking west, and how it fits today. A little bit more commercial in this area, 2-story buildings in this area, parking on both sides, sidewalk on both sides, and 2 lanes of traffic through here. So let's switch to there. So this is how light rail fits through there. So 1 lane of traffic in each direction. We get the sidewalks on both sides. Again, there's a lot of work that we'll need to do with the county and the city, and design to how we allocate that roadway, and to keep adequate roadways so we can have vehicles on there, but also make sure that we're paying attention to pedestrian movements through here. Obviously, as you can see on this, there's not the opportunity for parking here. There just is not that room. So this is some of the discussion we have as we're doing, starting to look at analyzing what the parking is out there and what our options are for mitigating that parking. What is a toolbox that we have for us to make up for loss of parking through here, and how do we continue to do that to support the businesses in that community?
Can I ask a question right now, Nick? Do you mind?
Sure.
I know I'm jumping ahead to your elevated stuff and side running stuff, but I'm just curious if you go back 1 slide.
Okay.
Does that option at grade center running, does that allow you to widen the sidewalks on Broadway? Because currently you cannot walk too wide on it without, almost being in traffic.
You can. Yeah, I think the answer to that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going back and forth. Yes, it is a narrower sidewalk on both sides right now. I think, depending on how we allocate the roadways, I think, my belief, and I feel that we can give back quite a bit more to that walk zone, let's call it, in there, and make it, more inviting and more comfortable for pedestrians in there, and still maintain, that a good traffic flow, good lanes of traffic. But, we do need to spend a lot of time along here evaluating intersections. If we have a signalized intersection, we're going to want to make sure we have left turn lanes in there so we can get those turn movements through adequately and safely. And then, we need to look at other things like, how bus stops operate and things like that.
The other question I had is if we're trying to encourage as much pedestrian walking and visiting businesses, how frequently will a pedestrian on the north side of Broadway be able to cross over a center running light rail to the south side? How frequently would you be able to cross?
I guess I'm going to go a little bit on a limb here. We're going to sit down with the county, and we have work sessions or workshops with the county and the city, and we're going to look at how intersections operate. Yeah, obviously, if it's not a signalized intersection, we're not going to be able to maintain that through the movement, but likely we need to maintain a pedestrian crossing at that location because that's where folks are going to want to cross. So, if they're going to cross there anyways, we got to make sure that we can maintain that safely. So I would say at least every block we should be able to do it, but there might be some circumstances where it goes a little bit farther, but that would only be if there wasn't a destination on either side of it. We'll make every effort that we can if it's a pedestrian crossing now to maintain that.
If you're going to take away every bit of parking they have in front of their storefronts, you have to have some availability of walking to it, not walking 4 blocks, 5 blocks to their stores. I mean, you're going to kill every business on that road if you don't.
Exactly.
Nick, I don't know about every block, but
yeah.
But we had signal spacing at them on University Avenue that was closer than station spacing, and then we had unsignalized pedestrian crossings in between those spots, so that I want to say it was no more than an 1/8 mile, or in essence like 600 feet between where you could cross, which is maybe a couple of blocks.
Yeah, 2 blocks, and that's probably a better characterization.
Where there were at least pedestrian crossings built in, because you're right. A couple things will happen. Number one, people won't walk that far, so then they'll start taking kind of weird chances, and they'll start crossing in the middle of blocks, and they'll cross through the guideway. And if we have a bollard and chain or something like that, like we have,
or they just won't come there,
or they won't go there, right? And so to that end, we've got to make pedestrian movements much more frequent than we're able to allow vehicular movements.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
No, I was just going to ask what the impact is to alleys and throughways, or is there?
Well, with center running, throughways. So I think you're saying unsignalized intersections, Catherine.
Yes.
Unsignalized, we'll have to evaluate how that intersection operates. Obviously, if it crosses the guideway, we need to have that as a signalized intersection because we need to be able to control the traffic and the trains so we don't have issues there. So that will evaluate per intersection. Some of those intersections that are maybe through today but not signalized, they would become right in, right out. The same with alleys, but we're taking a look because Washington Avenue has or West Broadway has a lot of weird configured intersections and geometries through there that maybe we can clean some of that up and consolidate it and actually have it work better.
Let me just talk real quick about alleys behind businesses.
Yes.
If you're thinking of alleys behind businesses, one of the things we did on University Avenue was we put some money in the contract, in the construction contract, to allow for paving some alleys and in some cases fixing up some areas. People had some areas behind their businesses where maybe they could squeeze in a couple of parking spots if they moved the utility pole and rearranged a few things back there. So we put some money in the contract to help small businesses, especially fix some of the alleys and upgrade them because they had the potential to serve, even for employees, right? Maybe employees weren't using the alleys today at businesses. And so if we could fix it up a little bit, employees could use the alleys to use other parking spaces in other spots.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, Dan, as well as a space for deliveries. We're anticipating
space for deliveries as well. That's a great point. If all of a sudden, you can't just use the right lane, can we build a bump out on the side street to allow for deliveries? Can we, again, make the alley, maybe an alley today is kind of all beat up and ratted up and just needs to be repaved. We can make that part of it too.
Just two things real quick, Nick and Dan. This is looking at a very narrow and pretty fixed area. Just one block east, as you know, is that Hawthorne crossing area with all the additional space on the north side of the street. Has there been some conversation working with the private owner of that area to get some type of variance to expand out just a little bit to kind of help some of our situation there? That's one question. Then two, I know that West Broadway is a highly frequented road in that area. This choke down, by the looks of it right now, almost cuts it potential traffic patterns in half. Have we started to talk about what the impact will be in the other streets, i.e., one block north or south of the area, or is there going to be some type of rearrangement of potential flow in that area?
Let's start with that first, or the second question first. That's as we're starting to look at that. Yes, of what the impacts are going to be to intersections, how the grid will operate through this area, and then with that, we'll start looking at where there would be or could be potential diversions, and then how that would flow through, and that would be part of our analysis, and potentially part of the project if we need to mitigate for some stuff to make it work better. So yeah,
But
we're just at the beginning, Brett. So
remember at
Yeah.
Washington Avenue went through the University of Minnesota campus. We closed that street off.
Yeah,
We
completely.
took the traffic off. So one of the things we did was we ran some traffic models that guesstimated where traffic would likely divert to.
Right.
And then we went to some of those spots and said, okay, let's put an all-way stop here. Let's add a traffic signal here. Let's add a turn lane here at areas around, because there was a likelihood, that traffic was going to get diverted. Now, when we leave a road open, a lot of people are still going to want to get here on West Broadway. So the first thing we got to do is, how do we allow this road to continue to flow, to keep people moving? And then secondly, if people do divert, where's the best spots and what can we do to kind of get ready for that diversion and make those roadways safer as well?
Because I can definitely see that Plymouth is going to pick up a lot of action on that side of things. You'll see 26 probably get a significant increase as well. So, I mean, just to kind of prepare us from that standpoint. And again, yeah, we are going to have to look at some very interesting partnerships as relates to shuttle activity, or even district parking, where you can actually put some things together from there. So, I mean, we're going to have to be very we're going to have to be very creative in order to make sure that there's some flow on West Broadway, by looking at it from this standpoint.
yeah, can you remind me that just the first part of your question too, Brett?
Yeah, dealing with Emerson, the one block, that would be east. I know Hawthorne Crossing, plenty of space over there, and I'll be perfectly honest, there's a lot of the older buildings are getting down that road as well. Have we talked about trying to widen the street just a little bit to maybe accommodate some of the things that we're talking about, the parking, the biking, etc.?
As we're in the initial stages of design, we have not reached out to any property owners or anything at this time. But as we evaluate it, everything's on the table at this point. So,
and again, Brett, remember what you see here is just a typical section where we've got traffic and LRT. Right. But when we need a left turn lane, we have to do some widening. Where we need a station, we're going to have to do some widening. So it kind of goes both ways. Where do we want to do the widening because it fits for traffic? And then where do we have space? And can we make those two things work? So as we kind of march down the corridor, we'll look for areas like that and say, is this a spot where we could put a left turn lane for an adjacent street, allow for a traffic signal there because widening might be easier. Now, if it's at a street that doesn't really serve anything, that doesn't make sense. So where do we find that balance and how do we get that to happen? Because there are pockets of space where the parking lot's a little bit wider. This condition where it's building face to building face makes up a chunk of West Broadway, but not all of it. And so we've got areas out there. Plus, we want the community to guide us on what they say. These are sacred spots. These will not be touched, right? The Capri Theater was not going to get touched. Right. Shiloh Church is not going to get touched, right? Those things. But then these ones are opportunities for redevelopment. Maybe it's a vacant site where the building is still there, but it hasn't, well, what if we take that, buy that property, use some of it for the project, and then turn the rest of it back into a redevelopment opportunity for something new? Now we've got kind of a win-win going all along.
Yeah, and I think that's where the creativity creates opportunity as well. That I think we can be very proactive on it. So, yeah,
and that's what we can't do it alone, right? We can't guess all those things alone. We need the expertise of the business, like West Broadway Business Coalition and the Juxta and the other folks that are out in the community like yourselves that know this area and can help say, what about this, what about that, and get us moving. So that'll all be evolving as we take this steps further.
There's room for we have a blank palette right now.
That's correct.
Don't threaten me with a good time. It's going to be great. Thanks.
That's where I'm going with it. Is we are really in the early stages here of design work as we're rolling out. So these concepts are really to elicit the conversation we're having, get the ideas, and see how to move forward. So a lot of work to do. So hopefully you guys can still see the screen. Are we on the page? I've lost the screen.
Slide running elevated intro slide. Where we are.
So I'm going to try to walk through this a little bit with the elevated section. So that slide is up, Sophia?
Yep. It is now, Nick.
Yeah, so this is just an example of how elevated would fit along the corridor. We use this section by Emerson as just as a representative example. Elevated, would be similar anywhere else along the corridor. We didn't, put this into each one of our concept views at all. It's just more to see what that is, because we're getting a lot of comments from folks about have you considered elevating it here? Because our first question back is why would we elevate? Usually you elevate for a physical reason, to get up and over something. And I think some of the thought is if we're elevating a structure, it's to get back more room on the roadway. And with this slide, you can kind of see by the time you get the abutments in the middle and you get that structure up there, and you still accommodate for turn lanes, and you make sure you've got the clearance to protect, to keep, you can't have the traffic running right up against those abutments. You need clearance zones that you really don't get back much more road space with the elevated. It ends up being a very large structure that overshadows things. And on this graphic, you'll also see the cutaway that's that 28-foot guideway, but the wire frame that you see on the outside of it, it represents what it would look like if there was a station in the location, because we'll need to widen out for the station platforms, and that would represent how much bigger a structure will get at a station area. And you can see that it starts really filling up that space substantially. And really, there's not the return I think people think of getting back more room on the roadway. So any questions on that, on elevated or that kind of analysis?
I got a bunch.
Yeah.
So with the elevated, could you not create green space, parking lanes, and bike right underneath it? If you have the abutments, it doesn't matter if a bike lane deviates out 6 to 8 feet and then returns back. It's not that big a deal, correct? And you can fit parking spaces where your turn lanes are. Half the block back could be parking spaces, or vice versa. You could deviate running roadways.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have cross traffic slowdowns. You don't have pedestrian issues nearly as much. I just don't understand how this isn't on the forefront of thought, I guess. I know it's more expensive, I know, and there's the issue of getting like people up to the stations. But there's a lot of potential here, and I think we're just going, well, middle of the road at grade is what we do.
Well, I guess it's one way to characterize it. You know, like you say, you know, one of our things is really access to station areas and getting folks to that station. It really does become cumbersome for different abilities, you know, with elevators and stairs and everything that you need to get up to them. You know, it's tough if an elevator or two elevators goes down, or if you're on one side and the elevator goes down, it's an issue, and it adds that extra barrier there. So that is one of the considerations. I think the other consideration that we're hearing back as we're starting to show this to folks is, you know, that it starts overshadowing, you know, especially the context of a roadway in a community where, you know, it's mostly two-story buildings through here, and that you know, that guy was looking down into the second window of those buildings in that location. So that shadowing. Green space might be really tough because it really does end up shadowing quite a bit. So it's pretty dark down there. You're not getting a lot of sun for green space, but it would give you back space for, um, I guess I haven't contemplated how well a bikeway would fit in there. You know, maybe a little bit of parking, but you know, the roadway operations, it doesn't give you back.
Well, this shows precast decking. It doesn't have to be precast decking across the entire top. It could be steel graded structures or open web steel structures. I mean, it could be all kinds of things. This shows only precast, which is, I know, the way to go, but you could definitely trim the footprint or the opaqueness of it down to create that sunlight coming through. It doesn't have to be precast deck from east to west, from north to south, right?
I guess there's different safety considerations when it goes there. You know, we need to make sure that there's egress coming off of all that structures all the way along it. You know, so if they need to get to a train, or you know, if there's maintenance issues, or how to get people on and off if there was an emergency or something. So, you know, we do need that solid walkway somewhere. I guess I haven't contemplated, you know, more of a graded structure so there's more opaqueness. But you know, that might be an issue to look at, but you know, we can look at it.
I mean, Adam, those kind of things, I mean, those kind of levels of, you know, can we use steel? Does it have to be, you know, concrete beams? Does it, you know, what level of guideway? That's all certainly part of final design pieces. I think what we really want to understand with the ability, and you've touched on a number of them, what can we get, right? When we look at LRT at grade on West Broadway, we end up losing some stuff and keeping some stuff. And so, what can we get back if we use an elevated section versus an at grade section? And is what we get back more beneficial than what will be, you know, the kind of the context issue of an elevated piece on a two lane neighborhood type of a street rather than in a downtown section, right? And so, I mean, it's big. It takes up, you know, while it may take up a smaller footprint, it takes up a lot of space, and it seems we've heard from people, boy, we thought the elevated would be good. It might be too big of a scale for this. That doesn't mean it has to be. So I think we need to keep it on the table. It's got to be alive as an idea. But I think what we've really got to do as we move this along is analyze. I mean, from just simply from a operational standpoint, if we don't have to have miles of structure and we can have miles of at-grade LRT, much easier to operate and maintain. But what are we getting? What are we losing by the at-grade option, and what could we get back? Is what we would get back by doing this overriding what this might do? And so that's why it's got to still be in the mix.
I just don't. I appreciate all those, and I appreciate your response. I appreciate the hearing. I just don't want the renderings, which are completely concept, to be the only thing we're like, oh, it casts a hell of a shadow. Well, I guess we're out on that. And then
Yeah, sure.
$1.5 billion project with 2 to 3 stations in the north side that would be elevated. Well, we can't support 2 elevators at a station in the future, so then it's out. I just think those are thin arguments for a huge infrastructure project like this to be.
Yeah, I think it really, to me, Adam, it really comes down to what are we getting back by putting in the structures and, you know, taking on the cost, both capital cost and long-term maintenance cost. Are we getting back enough that justifies that? Because if we are, I mean, if we're saving 10, 12 acquisitions of properties that we wouldn't have had, boom, now you've got something. If we're saving the ability to have more signalized intersections and better pedestrian crossings, you've got that. I mean, so those are the trade-offs we want to measure this against. And while all the things Nick brings up are all certainly valid points, it all kind of wraps up into one package of does it or does it not make sense?
Yeah.
So when we talk about the maintenance of a raised platform, tell me, what is the maintenance plan for the miles or the heavy amounts of flyover bridges on the Green Line expansion? Because there's some hefty flyovers and tunnels and everything else. Those are some very long stretches that are raised. There must be a plan there. What's the difference
here? As the funder of operations and maintenance costs on Southwest, Hennepin County obviously has significant concerns about that. And, you know, that project went forth with a lot of it because of how that all came together. So I don't know. I mean, you're right.
I don't like the idea that we can't afford it here, but we can afford it there.
Oh,
well, and to add to that, I mean, it goes directly to Dan's point of, you know, kind of what does a structure buy us, and so if you kind of tick down the line of Southwest structures and why they're there. Well, you have an elevated bridge, so you need a stair and elevator tower to get down from the bridge to the station. You save buying hundreds of condos with a tunnel. You saved a major safety issue of an intersection. You already had grade separated railroads, so it made sense to put a bridge for the LRT because the freight rail is already on a bridge. You're in prairie and the soil is basically mush, so your bridge is almost just a soil stabilization versus a bridge function. So it's not that we are opposed to structure or using structure as a way to solve an issue. We just have to be able, it is a lot more money both in the immediate and in the long term. And so we have to make sure that we're justifying exactly why we're using it and why the alternative didn't work. And so, you know, with the visualizations, you know, it starts to give a feel of what it could be, but really articulating the benefit to the cost, we need to flush that out, and that's part of the community conversation too, to kind of get creative, and then if it's not working, to look for alternatives.
The cost, and I totally kudos to that idea, cost and rationales behind structures versus non-structures. The cost is not just dollars and cents. This is going to be cleaving a neighborhood who already has troubles in half, potentially, creating a north and south division, versus potentially not if we look at other options. That's what I want to bring up, because I've heard people are like, how are you going to do this? How are they going to cross? How are they going to widen the sidewalks? It's too hard to walk down it currently. Well, we're talking like, well, we're not going to widen the sidewalks probably. We're actually going to take away your parking and your turn lanes and your driving space. I just think it needs to be in the mix, and I don't want it to be just like a forgotten conclusion. That's all I'm worried about, I guess.
Good point. Good points, Adam.
Good point.
I would just say I really appreciate Adam's comments and the way that, I mean, these visualizations they're beautiful to look at, and you can start to get a sense of how this would look. But for me, the problem is we're always talking curb to curb, and there's a package here, and we're talking pluses and minuses within that package, and it's defined by the curb to curb all the way up until the front of the buildings or the residences. And I've always viewed this as all the side streets and all the streets leading up to it are part of that package. And so when you say we're taking away, any bike lane, we're cutting the pedestrian walkway in half, whatever it happens to be. In my mind, I want to start talking about what's around this. How can we make up for that? And I know that you folks are thinking about this as part of the package, and you can't do renderings for every side street and all that stuff,
Sure.
but that needs to be part of the conversation, because getting there on a bike, all that kind of stuff is as important as everything that we see on these pretty visuals to me. And it's not just, we're going to take away 2 lanes of traffic, so we need to go to the side street and stop people from going into that neighborhood. That can't be the end of our discussion. The discussion should include all these other, tributaries and everything else to get there. How are folks getting there from Golden Valley? Where are they parking their bikes? All this stuff needs to be part of the package. And then you could talk about the takeaways on this visualization. You could say, yeah, but we're making up for it here and here. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
Absolutely. Two
Yeah.
points, Scott, to what you said. Number one, it doesn't matter if it fits if you can't get there, right? So we can work as hard as we can to get LRT to fit on West Broadway, but if nobody can get to the stations, either by foot or by bike or by car or by bus or by some other way, it's not going to be that successful. Secondly, it goes a little bit to what Brett said earlier, is that it isn't just what are we doing to West Broadway if we build it, but what other bike path connections do we need to make? What other roadway improvements on adjacent roadways, because they could take some additional traffic? Catherine brought up alleys and the ability to touch on alleys. It's all part of the mix. You're right, because it's all, while we can't do everything on West Broadway or on Lowry or on Highway 81, how do we serve all of the needs that take place there with adjacent roadways, cross roadways, and the facilities to get people to move around? And again, I go back to the time we spent when we decided to do what we did at the University of Minnesota, which was to remove traffic from Washington Avenue, put LRT buses, bikes, and pedestrians through campus. We looked at what we did there on Washington Avenue, and then we looked at a much larger footprint all around in terms of how we would serve all of the things that take place that road was used for. So that becomes part of it as well. And if it starts to get too great, then maybe elevated makes some sense. Maybe not everywhere, maybe in sections, maybe in key intersections, all those kind of pieces to help put the whole package together. And we don't, we're not going to be able to design the whole package in 2021. What we want to do in 2021 is get a good enough feel that we're on the right track, if you will, to move the project forward to solve all of those, that we have a pathway to solve all of those kind of issues as you bring them up.
So Dan, just to do a little bit more singing to the choir, I think some of the negative feedback I've gotten from residents is the impact to the surrounding areas, their families, their children playing outside or whatever, and more traffic coming down because you reduced West Broadway to.
Fair enough. That's a good point, Catherine. And it's one we're going to have to. West Broadway carries different traffic than residential streets carry. The residential streets are not intended to carry West Broadway traffic. And so how do we make sure that works? And, we've talked about a number of ways. If we see congestion points that would cause diversion, is there a spot where we maybe need to think about a different way, right? Like using elevated over a couple intersections, like doing some widening and adding in some additional space, whatever those solutions may be, to minimize those things.
And I think we have to remember, and again, this is the unfair advantage that we have walking the street in North Minneapolis on a regular basis, understanding what some of those buildings are and their current capacity and everything else. A lot of those buildings aren't going to be there. Let's keep this real. So because of what is happening and the redevelopment of things from that standpoint, so we should be able to gain some space if the negotiation takes place properly. But it goes back to what I think Dan was talking about. Can we, we have to reimagine and then provide new opportunities for the community to really to see its success at that point in time. With that said, yeah, we're fighting something that's very difficult in the first place with 94 as the major, inflow to the rest of the world, and the northwest suburbs basically using 81 as the thoroughfare and as a very very quick thoroughfare as well. This is going to be reduced greatly. That they're going to have their traffic pattern is going to have to use 100 in order to get to
Sure.
the rest of the
Sure.
world, and then we're going to have to just reimagine how that world is going to take. I mean, I can't remember what the number is as it relates to traffic flow. I know it is over 20,000 from my understanding, and probably a little north of that. That comes through West Broadway, but now understanding that the limitation of getting to 94 as quickly is going to go down a different road. Now we get to reconfigure, reimagine how that can actually take place. So, I mean, right now we're kind of shooting at, we're shooting at a very difficult moving target as we have to kind of reimagine. I think right now what we should be focusing on is reimagining with the best intent of saying, let's figure it out. I mean, definitely let's keep this elevated piece on, because we're not talking about, this whole thing coming from like Robbinsdale all the way down to, when it gets to Lindale. We're probably maybe talking about a couple blocks as well. So
where we have the biggest challenges. That's good.
Exactly. So let's work through it from that standpoint and make it happen from there. And it's just going to be a mix. And maybe this is, we won't be able to solve everything for everybody, but we have to at least make the attempt to be as creative as possible in order to get there.
And send them down 26.
Oh, they're going to go down 26. That's going to happen.
There might be a couple of people on 26 that don't like that answer, Catherine.
I'm sure there will be. They're going to.
Oh, and that's always the case. That's always the case.
Mhm.
Well, great input, great feedback. We do appreciate it. And yeah, and I think, Scott, to some of your stuff, that there is a lot of work we got to do. That's the direction we're going to kind of put all these pieces of the puzzle together. This is kind of the beginning of it, and the first look, and obviously these visualizations are helping to promote that discussion. So good, and we'll keep listening and keep working on it.
Nick, just say one last recommendation, because I know that these things are going in front of, community members and all those type of things. I think having one set of renderings around one station where you've got some things around the surrounding community, a street north, a street south, this is how bikes might work, this is how the pedestrian stuff might work. I think that would be helpful as you're taking this out to smaller groups. You can't do this all the way along the line, but just reminding folks again and again that there's a bigger path here that needs to be figured out, and we're aware of it. We're not going to forget about it. We've got renderings around it. This will be a part of that program. I think that would be beneficial to your sales process going forward.
Yeah.
What he's saying,
Roll plots to kind of get into the weeds of those details.
Yeah. That good point, and that's what we do. We will use those roll plots and stuff where we have a broader map for those discussions. So thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what are the other.
I think Catherine might have had one more thing.
No, I was
No,
just
you
gonna
guys.
say, Nick is an engineer, and the things he does are engineer-ish, if that's a word. So I think to the gentleman's point that if you make it a little more relevant to the smaller groups, then you definitely going to have a bigger win. The information is great, but just gearing it more toward your audience.
Yep. Well, thank you. Yeah.
I do a lot of things that are engineer-ish every day, Catherine. So that's good. That's good.
Quasi-engineerish. Let's talk a little bit about side running too. One of the questions on side running is, with splitting the traffic, would it make more sense to run the LRT on one side or another, whether it's east side, west side, north side, south side, along the alignments, and the graphic we have up there just shows how a side running would fit along that section, the same section of Emerson, just for context reasons, and what it looked like to have those two lanes of traffic together. One of the things we want to bring up here as we look at side running, you think maybe it consolidates things a little bit, keeps traffic on one side, keeps the light rail on the other side. But, some of the things to also consider, and one of the reasons we're not recommended, but it's out there for consideration is that side running does have a lot more impacts. It's the, where we have issues with left turns, those are compounded with right turns across that track are also the same. Anytime we have a crossing on the track, we need to have a signalization there to control the traffic going across it. So what happens with that side running is it's more impactful to the side it's on, as far as if we're crossing that track with traffic, we need to make sure it's signalized. And so if there's driveways or alleyways or unsignalized streets or anything, those would potentially be shut off, closed down in those locations. So it really has a heavy impact on how traffic flows through the areas, especially in this downtown area. Now, there's side running in other areas where there's not those conflicts or crossings, and it works really well. But when you're having more streets, more alleys, more driveways, it really does bring up a lot of issues with it. So the maps that we have here, and won't spend a lot of time on it, especially since I can't see them. But they just show along West Broadway the impacts of driveways, accesses, and streets are pretty significant, whether it's on one side or the other. And that's the same with Lowry also. Lowry, with maybe a few more driveways and stuff, has even more impacts from side.
We just ran through, Nick, the West Broadway, kind of showing that the northeast and for Lowry showing the south side running, and then showing wrong direction, and then north side running. So in there you go.
So again, it's for discussion. These are comments brought up by the community to have us take a look at. So we want to make sure that we're showing that and having the discussion on it and getting more feedback. But any questions, concerns on the side running?
How about a quick weird question, Nick? From what I've seen, everything is either straight or not straight. Is there a mix of side running and then middle, or no?
Yes. Yeah. As a matter of fact, Washington Avenue is one where we have a visualization for it. We didn't include it in this presentation, but as you get farther north with the Washington alignment, so we're center running on Washington, but as we get farther north towards Lowry, we'll have to probably cross the tracks on a separate bridge or separately from being in the roadway, like Dan said before. It really wouldn't work going through the intersection there. So at that point, as we start getting north, and I'm forgetting what street it is that we're north of, but there we would probably shift over to a side running, closer to 94 in that green area, and then bring it over on a structure in that area. So yeah, we can combine them if the conditions are right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much most of the presentation, right, Sophia? I'm not missing a slide.
Yeah, we're at the Minneapolis discussion slide, and so I guess just there was a lot of discussion about Minneapolis. So I guess just leaving the field open for a second as we kind of look holistically at the different options and the considerations. If people have any other questions or thoughts, and kind of look at the committee real quick, and if not, we can just do we're at 8 o'clock, so I can do a really quick update, and then we can let everybody go. Okay, like that. I think that's a head nod to do that. Just real quick, the RFP for the anti-displacement work is out on the street. You should have gotten an email kind of with the links to all of that. If anybody has any questions, Sam O'Connell is on the call with us, and Kathy Gold is also here from the county for those logistic pieces. As we kind of roll out all this new information, kind of the last month's summary of engagement will also be on our website. I just really want to highlight in June and kind of the early part of July, continue to be out in the world, out and about, at different community events, also popping up at some of our grocery stores to talk to people. We'll continue to do that both as the Hy-Vee and Robbinsdale and Cobb, and in other locations as well, some of the markets and whatnot. So we're out there, and we hope to see some of you, if you want to give us more of your time, at some of the both the in-person open houses that we have coming up next week, and encourage your neighbors and friends and family and everybody you know to come and talk to us and give us feedback. If you kind of digest this meeting a little bit and then have more to say, we definitely want to hear it. And it's been really fun when I get to see some people in person and realize that you're all very much taller than me and things like that. So if you just want to even come and see the project staff in person and put more of a physical presence to the people that you know and chat a little bit, we welcome you too. So and
Sophia, could I just? Sorry, Sophia, I just want to, we just noticed this on the slide, the in-person Brooklyn Park event. It's not a full 24 hours. It is happening on Wednesday, July 21st, but it is from 5 to 7:30. So just wanted to make folks aware that we'd love to see you. And, if we could do 24 hours, we probably could, but we're actually on the 21st going to just be there from 5 to 7:30.
Typo there on my part. Also, just if people aren't comfortable with in person, we have virtual events to mirror basically all of our in-person activities. So spread the word. Hope to talk to you more. And with that as well, on Friday, if any of you have played around with our interactive map, it will go live again with visualizations and the proposed station areas and everything that you saw. So if folks that aren't able to attend but want to start to provide comment, that's a way to direct them, as well as just reaching out to project staff with questions or comments. Just to key off real quick, our next scheduled meeting would be the first week of August. I think we'll call it if we have additional stuff. Otherwise, I think there's a lot of conversation to be had already. And then just also note the September date follows the Labor Day weekend. So we might want to end up pushing September a week back, just like we did in July. So just kind of wanted to put that out already, because school's starting. It'll be a week where people are starting school or in their first week of school and then having a holiday. And we're, want as much attendance as possible. So that's what we got. And I can leave it up to the committee, and we don't have a chair here, so if somebody else can call to adjourn, we'll be ready to say goodnight if there's not any other comments.
So moved.
So moved. Sounds like we are seconds and all that kind of stuff. I assume
Get out.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you for
everybody.
the feedback. It was really helpful to get those initial reactions. So
Yeah, great conversation. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks
everybody.
for your time, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.